Melania Trump sat quietly in the dimly lit office of her lawyer, her fingers tightly gripping the armrest of the chair. The news had spread like wildfire. A popular liberal TV show had made cruel jokes at the expense of her son, Barron. The slurs were personal, cutting deep into the heart of a mother who had long kept her family out of the public eye. The media had crossed a line this time, and Melania wasn't going to let it slide. She had always been a private person, preferring to stay out of the spotlight. But this was different. Barron, now 18, was no longer the little boy the public remembered from his younger years. He had grown into a young man, someone she was fiercely protective of. The constant media scrutiny had always been unbearable, but this latest attack felt like a direct assault on her family's dignity. She couldn't stay silent anymore. As her lawyer discussed the legal options, Melania's thoughts drifted back to Barron's face when he first heard about the show's comments. He had always been a calm, reserved young man, but that day Melania saw a flicker of anger in his eyes, a look she had never seen before. Barron had told her not to do anything, to just let it go, but she couldn't. Not this time. The phone buzzed in her pocket, and it was a message from Barron. "Mom, I don't want you to do this. It's just words. We don't need to make a big deal." His message broke her heart. She understood his desire to remain out of the limelight, but Melania knew she had to act. This was about more than just words. This was about respect, dignity, and protecting her family's honor. Later that evening, Melania made her decision. She would sue. She would take action and force these hosts to face the consequences of their careless words. The media would know that there was a line you couldn't cross, even when it came to powerful figures like herself. The lawsuit sent shockwaves through the media. News outlets everywhere were buzzing about it. Some were in support, praising her for standing up for her son. Others, however, criticized her, accusing her of overreacting. But Melania remained silent. She wasn't doing this for the cameras or the headlines. She was doing this for Barron. Meanwhile, Barron struggled with his own emotions. Despite being in the public eye all his life, he was still a private person at heart. He hated the constant attention and scrutiny. It didn't help that he had recently become more vocal about his own beliefs, sometimes expressing opinions that didn't fit into the neatly packaged image the public had of him. He had always been careful about what he said, knowing the consequences, but this time was different. His mother's actions stirred something within him, a desire to reclaim control of his own narrative. In the coming days, the case gained even more attention. The liberal TV hosts at the center of the lawsuit tried to defend themselves, claiming they were only exercising their right to free speech. The public was divided, with opinions falling into two camps: those who saw Melania's actions as justified, and those who believed it was an attempt to silence criticism. But one thing became clear: Barron was no longer just a shadow in the background of his family's public life. He was becoming a symbol of resilience, of standing up for what you believe in, no matter the cost. And as the legal battle unfolded, the world watched closely, eager to see how this would all play out. What they didn't know was that the story was about to take an unexpected turn, one that no one could have predicted. As the legal proceedings continued, something unexpected happened. A leak from inside the court documents revealed an interesting detail. Barron had been in direct contact with the host before the lawsuit was filed. The public was shocked. Why had he reached out to them? What was he trying to achieve? Barron had always been seen as the quiet, reserved member of the Trump family, never in the limelight and rarely speaking out. But behind the scenes, he had his own reasons for engaging with the hosts. Weeks before the jokes were made about him, Barron had reached out to the TV hosts privately, asking them to stop making jokes about him. He had even sent them a heartfelt message explaining how these jokes hurt not just him, but his mother and the entire family. But instead of backing down, the hosts had laughed it off and continued their mockery on air. This revelation sent the media into a frenzy. Some saw Barron's move as a sign of maturity, someone who was trying to handle things peacefully without causing a scene. Others, however, viewed it as a sign of weakness, suggesting he wasn't strong enough to handle the harsh realities of public life. But the truth was, Barron was more complex than anyone realized. His decision to privately approach the hosts showed a side of him that few had ever seen: vulnerable yet determined, trying to protect his family without resorting to drama. As the trial date approached, the pressure mounted on Melania. She began receiving public and private messages from all sides, some supportive, others critical. She had always known that her family would be subjected to relentless media attention, but this was different. It wasn't just about her anymore. It was about Barron, a young man who had been forced into the spotlight against his will. The day of the trial finally arrived, and the courtroom was packed. Media outlets from around the world had gathered, eager to see how this unprecedented legal battle would unfold. Melania sat in the front row, her eyes focused on the hosts who were now in the defendant's chair. Barron had insisted on staying at home, refusing to attend the trial. He didn't want the public to see his pain, to see how deeply this whole ordeal had affected him. The lawyer representing the hosts tried to downplay the situation, claiming that the jokes were meant in good humor. Nothing more. But as the defense attorney spoke, Melania could feel a wave of anger building inside her. These people had mocked her son, and now they were minimizing the harm they had caused. The pressure of the moment weighed heavily on her, but she knew she had to remain composed. This wasn't just about winning the case. It was about sending a message that no one could cross the line when it came to her family's dignity. Then, in a moment that would forever change the trajectory of the case, the hosts made a shocking announcement. They admitted under oath that they had deliberately continued their mockery after receiving Barron's message. They had mocked him even more, thinking it would boost ratings. This revelation stunned everyone in the courtroom. The hosts, once untouchable in the media world, were now caught in a scandal of their own making. But the twist didn't end there. As the trial continued, a new figure emerged, a whistleblower who had worked behind the scenes on the show. This individual came forward, revealing that the producers had intentionally pushed the hosts to make the jokes about Barron, knowing it would stir controversy and drive more viewers to the show. The media machine that had once seemed so invincible was now crumbling before everyone's eyes. The truth was out, and with it, a deeper narrative began to unfold. One that revealed the dark side of the media, the manipulation behind the scenes, and the lengths to which some would go to make money off the suffering of others. Barron, who had been reluctant to make this public, now found himself at the center of a movement. His actions, his decision to fight back, had exposed a corrupt system. His courage was inspiring, and slowly the public began to rally behind him and his family. But what happened next would shock everyone and change the course of this case forever. As the trial unfolded, the media frenzy only grew. News outlets across the world were buzzing with the latest revelations. What was once a story about a mother fighting for her son's dignity had transformed into a larger conversation about the manipulation of the media, the ethics of comedy, and the consequences of pushing boundaries in the name of ratings. But even more shocking was what came next. Barron himself was about to take the stand. For weeks, Barron had remained in the background, refusing to attend the trial and only communicating through his mother's legal team. But in a stunning turn of events, Barron made the decision to speak publicly for the first time. He would testify. The news hit the media like a bombshell. No one had expected Barron to step forward, especially after everything that had happened. People wondered what he would say. What would he reveal about his own journey through the public eye? The day Barron took the stand was surreal. The courtroom was packed, and every camera in the room was trained on him. He walked in, calm and composed, but there was a quiet intensity in his eyes. He had always been known for his quiet demeanor, but today it was clear that he had something to say. As he sat down to speak, his voice was steady, though the weight of the moment seemed to hang in the air. "I didn't want this," Barron began. "I didn't ask for this life. I didn't ask to be in the spotlight." His words hit the room with a raw honesty that made everyone stop and listen. "But I also didn't want my family to suffer because of it. I wanted to handle this privately, but the people who mocked me didn't care. They didn't care about me or my family. They only cared about what would get them more viewers." Barron's testimony was emotional, powerful, and surprisingly candid. For the first time, he revealed the struggles he had faced growing up in the shadow of his famous family. He talked about the constant attention, the cruel jokes, and how it felt to be a part of a system that constantly exploited his every move for entertainment. His words struck a chord with many, and the audience in the courtroom could feel the weight of his frustration, his desire for privacy, and his deep longing for respect. But the twist came when Barron dropped a bombshell. He revealed that the liberal TV hosts who had mocked him weren't the only ones responsible for the pain he had endured. He spoke of a much bigger problem, an industry that thrived on exploiting people's pain, an industry that had long been a part of his family's world. The problem isn't just the jokes or the insults, Barron said. The problem is a system that profits from people's suffering. It's a machine that feeds off controversy, off making people feel like they're less than human. His words sent shockwaves through the courtroom. Barron was no longer just a victim in this story. He was calling out the entire media industry. He was challenging the status quo, exposing the greed and exploitation that ran through the veins of the entertainment world. His message was clear. It wasn't just about his family. It was about everyone who had been treated like a commodity in the media circus. And then came the twist that no one saw coming. Barron wasn't just speaking out for himself. He was speaking for a larger movement, a movement that called for more accountability in the media. He announced that he and a group of like-minded individuals were planning to create a new platform, one that would prioritize respect, integrity, and truth over sensationalism and exploitation. Barron's words left everyone stunned. He wasn't just fighting for justice for his family. He was fighting for change on a global scale. The news spread like wildfire. People began to see Barron in a new light, not just as the son of former President Trump, but as a young man willing to challenge a broken system. His bravery resonated with millions, and soon the media landscape began to shift. People started to question the very foundation of what they consumed. Was it fair to tear others down for entertainment? Was it worth sacrificing integrity for a few more ratings? Barron's decision to take a stand had sparked something much bigger than anyone could have imagined. And as the trial came to a close, the world watched, waiting to see how this new chapter would unfold. But what Barron had started was only the beginning. As the trial drew to a close, the world was left in awe of Barron's courage. His decision to speak out against the media, to challenge the very system that had shaped his life, had sparked a movement that no one could have predicted. The shockwaves from his testimony had reverberated across the globe. People were talking, discussing the ethics of entertainment, questioning the line between humor and harm, and examining the role of the media in shaping public perception. The liberal TV hosts who had once seemed untouchable were now facing mounting criticism. Their ratings, which had soared when they mocked Barron, began to plummet. The audience that had once found their cruel jokes amusing was now beginning to turn away. What had been a moment of triumph for them was now their downfall. People were waking up to the reality of how the media machine operated, how it thrived on controversy and exploited vulnerable individuals for the sake of entertainment. But as the media backlash against the hosts grew, something more significant began to unfold behind the scenes. Barron's new platform, the one he had promised to create during his testimony, was beginning to take shape. It wasn't just a dream anymore, it was becoming a reality. With the support of key figures from the tech and entertainment industries, Barron and his team began to build a space where content creators could produce work that was ethical, respectful, and grounded in truth. The platform was designed to be a direct challenge to the status quo, a place where sensationalism and exploitation would no longer be the driving forces. Instead, it would be a space for creativity, for storytelling that uplifted people rather than tearing them down. Barron's vision was clear. He wanted to create a world where people's dignity was valued, where the stories told were authentic, and where the media didn't just profit from controversy, but from meaningful, positive change. But as with any revolutionary idea, there were obstacles. The media giants who had once controlled the narrative weren't about to let Barron's vision take over without a fight. They launched campaigns to discredit him, to tarnish his name, and to stop his platform from gaining momentum. They tried to paint him as naive, as someone who didn't understand the complexities of the media industry. They accused him of trying to censor free speech, of trying to control what people could say and think. Barron's response was swift and calculated. He refused to back down. He continued to push forward with his platform, showing the world that it was possible to create something different. He wasn't trying to stop people from expressing themselves. He was trying to create a space where that expression was responsible and respectful. It wasn't about censorship, it was about accountability. The tension between Barron and the media industry reached its peak when Barron released his first public statement about the platform. In a press conference that was watched by millions, he laid out his vision in no uncertain terms. "We live in a world where the truth is often distorted for the sake of ratings," Barron said. "We live in a world where the pain of others is used as entertainment, but I believe we can do better. We can create a world where the stories we tell, the content we create, is grounded in truth, respect, and integrity. We can build something better for the future." His words resonated with millions. People who had once been skeptical of Barron's motives began to see him as a symbol of hope. He wasn't just the quiet son of a former president anymore. He was someone who was challenging the very foundations of the media industry. He was becoming a voice for the voiceless, a champion for those who had been torn apart by the media machine. But the true twist came when Barron revealed the final, shocking detail. His platform wasn't just for creating ethical content, it was also a place for healing. Barron had teamed up with mental health professionals and counselors to offer support to individuals who had been hurt by media exploitation. His platform would provide a safe space for those affected by public shaming, online harassment, and the damaging effects of sensationalism. Barron wasn't just challenging the system, he was offering a way to heal the wounds it had caused. As Barron's platform began to gain traction, it became clear that this was more than just a business venture. It was a movement. It wasn't just about Barron and his family anymore. It was about everyone who had ever felt the sting of public ridicule, who had been exploited for the sake of entertainment. Barron had created something that transcended personal grievances. He had created a platform for a new era of media, one that prioritized integrity, respect, and the well-being of individuals above all else. And in the end, Barron's courage had done more than just expose the flaws of the media industry. It had sparked a revolution, one that was changing the way the world consumed media and told stories. His actions, his bravery, and his vision had left a lasting impact, and the world was watching, waiting to see how this new chapter would unfold. As Barron's platform began to flourish, its impact spread far beyond what anyone could have imagined. What started as a challenge to the media's exploitative ways had transformed into a powerful movement, one that was reshaping the landscape of public discourse. Media outlets, once thriving on controversy and sensationalism, were now scrambling to adapt to the new wave of ethical content. Barron had become a symbol of hope, not just for those who had been harmed by the media, but for anyone who had ever been made to feel small, insignificant, or powerless. Yet even with all the success, Barron knew that the battle was far from over. The media industry, despite its evident cracks, was still a massive force. The backlash he faced from powerful entities only intensified as his platform gained more followers. Critics from every corner tried to dismiss him as a naive idealist, someone who didn't understand the complexities of the media world. They labeled his movement as a passing trend, a brief moment of defiance that would eventually be crushed under the weight of reality. But Barron didn't waver. He continued to move forward with the platform's mission, growing stronger with each challenge. He began to hold public forums, inviting experts in media ethics, mental health professionals, and everyday people to share their experiences. The more Barron listened to the stories of those affected by media manipulation, the more determined he became. His platform wasn't just for creating content. It was a space for people to come together, share their pain, heal, and ultimately rise above the forces that had tried to tear them down. The most powerful moment of Barron's journey came during a live broadcast, a moment that would define the movement. He stood before a crowd of thousands, both in the arena and watching online, with a calm resolve. He wasn't speaking to the media giants, to the critics, or to anyone who had doubted him. He was speaking to the people who had suffered in silence for too long. "This," Barron said, "is for all of you, for everyone who has ever felt unheard, invisible, or dismissed. This is for the people who believed they were too small to make a difference. We are the change. We are the future." The crowd erupted in applause, and as Barron's words echoed in the hearts of millions, something profound happened. The media began to shift, not just in the content it produced, but in the way it viewed its role in society. Barron had shown the world that the power of media could be used for good, for healing, for uplifting. His courage had ignited something deeper than just a platform. It had sparked a global awakening. The twist that no one saw coming was that Barron's influence had inspired a wave of young people to rise up, to speak out, and to demand better from the systems that had long exploited them. The younger generation, once silent and overshadowed, was now at the forefront of this new movement. They weren't just consumers of media, they were creators, leaders, and advocates for change. As Barron looked out over the sea of faces, he realized that this was more than a victory for him or his family. It was a victory for everyone who had ever been pushed to the sidelines, for every person whose voice had been drowned out by the noise of sensationalism. He had shown them that their stories mattered, that they had the power to change the narrative. And as the media landscape continued to evolve, one thing was clear. Barron Trump had not just challenged the system, he had become a catalyst for a new era, where respect, truth, and compassion were the cornerstones of storytelling. His fight had not been in vain. It had been the beginning of something much bigger, a movement that would shape the future of media and the world itself. In the end, Barron's story was not just about a son defending his family. It was about a young man who had the courage to stand up against the forces that sought to control and manipulate, who had the strength to rise above the noise and build something better. And in doing so, he had created a legacy that would last for generations to come, a legacy of empowerment, inspiration, and hope.